Are other teams ready to demo?
I think so. Anna, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to use that same generated link from the PR because we haven't merged yet. And now I was thinking, were we supposed to? I don't know if I missed something along the way.
Yeah, I think ideally we want to, but we don't have to. So this, what we're kind of experiencing this week is kind of typical of sometimes these things happen, right? Especially on a hard task, especially sometimes review cycles take longer than it needs to be. And it's okay. So we're experiencing this is like what happens. There are times where things will slip, and as a team, how can we do it together, right? So another fun thing is, you know, we can do the merge together as a team at the end of this thing to celebrate, like, yay, our PR got merged. So yeah, so we'll flow in the way that what works for the team, and we'll go from there. So we can start with demos and just, you know, like, understand this is your first time. This is a safe space. We're here to learn and give feedback, and, like, you know, as we're going, we'll do better on each one. So give it a try, and let's see how it goes.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen then.
Okay.
That work okay?
Yep.
Okay. So this is what James and I worked on during this week. We can switch between the list view and the add item view. And we started out adding the React Router DOM library, which was pretty straightforward. So it's right here. It's now part of our dependencies. And then our second task was to find a way so that the links would persist, these two links right here. So our first thought was just organizing what we wanted it to look like. So we broke it down into two pages, so two views, the add item and the list view. And then we also added a separate component, which was just the navigation bar, which is the part that actually persists. And that all comes together in our app function, where everything is listed with the help of the router, and then you can switch between the views and get everything to show up when it's supposed to between the clicks. And James is going to explain better how the routing works and how we got the styling to persist as well when you click.
Hey, Anna, if you'll just keep your screen up on that and just maybe expand your app.js component. My environment is not working with app.js. I'm getting an error. So, I'm pretty familiar with, you know, React Router DOM, and it's really cool and it's really useful. It simulates the URL functionality. It adds some of that sort of like standard web practice where you can navigate to a specific URL, like, you know, your home/something. And what you do is you import React Router DOM package into app.js is where I usually stick it, because it's kind of where you manage all of your various components, the top level component. Anything inside of the router is fair game. So you'll see that we've wrapped router around the entire app. And inside of that, it's really cool. Let's say we had like a footer or a header that we wanted to persist all the time on our app, no matter what, you know, URL we would have like a footer component outside of that switch. It would be inside of the router, but outside of the switch. And then anything inside of the switch is will completely be taken on or off the screen, depending on which of those routes you're in. So when we navigate to home, which is just where that says route exact path equals just a / on line 13, that URL is just the regular base URL without any sort of slug after it. And then you'll notice online, I can't see what line it is, but online 17, sorry,
17.
we have a backslash exact path to add item, and that's going to render our add item component, and they won't be on the same screen at all. It's cool. So it switches between the components, and it doesn't, have any kind of sort of like overlap or clash of the two components. It just completely just, the DOM listens, and when you click on one of those, it knows to render only the components you want inside of that switch, which is tied to that route. And something that's super cool is, I don't know how easy it is for Anna to show you, but you can like open a new tab and you can navigate to just that exact route. So maybe copy and paste that exact URL the way it is with the add item, and then it will it'll take you there. So even if you are like another user were to bookmark your particular slug or URL there, it will know to it'll behind the scenes it'll know to go to that particular component inside of those switches with that route. So I hope I explained that pretty good. I don't think, oh, you know what, there's one other thing that we learned, which is really cool. So inside of where we put our links to, so what you're looking at here is essentially those two links that navigate between the two. And I have never used nav link as a router link at the top there. So normally there's a component called link, and that's basically just simulates an A tag. It gets compiled down to an A tag on HTML. But navlink does the same thing, but it lets you add this active class name, which is really cool. So what we did is we created a class called navlink, and all that did was add a margin between our two links. And then we created an active class, and so this is in our CSS, called navlink bold. And when one of those links is selected, it will apply that class, that CSS class, to the active link, which is really cool. I've done all kinds of random hatchet jobs of use state and stuff to apply CSS, but this is way cleaner and way better, and it blew my mind. So if anything, this was just like a really useful exercise in reading the docs and kind of going through and find something that I needed and be like, oh, that's really neat. So I love that. Okay, presentation over.
Good job. Yeah, that's really good explanation. Does the other pair have questions for them in terms of like the code and how it's implemented?
I think the only question, and because I didn't do anything regarding reviewing code this week until late last night, so I apologize about that. I was just curious with the for the route for link, just doing a backslash, which is typically associated with like a home page, if that was an intentional decision or if it was just instead of having it be a backslash link.
Right, that's a great question. So I don't think we'll end up with that as our final home page. But in terms of being able to just quickly test and move between, because when you fire up when you hit npm start, you want to be able to see something. And so, we decided that would make the most sense to kind of keep just the testing, quick and moving seamlessly. I don't know exactly what we'll do if the app will have a home page that you navigate to first, a landing or something, but for sure that, but anything with just the backslash will be what your users will navigate to first, probably.
Right. Cool. Thanks.
Great. Should we switch to the other team?
I'm not sure how we demo. Is anything working?
If the link, there's a link in the PR of ours up a little ways that is working for some reason. I have that running right now. So if you want, if you want to find that, Zenzi, otherwise I can take the screen and.
Someone just posted it in the chat too.
Oh, thank you.
So before,
Or go
So
ahead.
before you start, so a little recommendation. So if your local environment doesn't work, and now that we have this backup environment, which is really great. So in real work situations, this could happen, right? So not all the time that you need to demo in your local environment is there will be QA or dev environments where everybody push their code, and that's where they will demo from. So when I had recommended having something open in your tab, this could be the other thing that could be open in your tab, which is it's definitely more reliable than your local as we're seeing today, right? So use this link, and then you can open up you still have your ID, and then from there, you know, highlight a little bit like some learnings, and that can work too. So
is that something that's generated by the PR or like where does that link come from?
it's generated by the branch.
Okay.
Your PR, yeah, your branch, and it's with intentions for you to see it and to demo. So that's a cool thing about having Firebase hosting our stuff. And then Nullify also does the same thing. So Nullify also have each branch has its own environment. I think Vercel for Next.js does the same thing too.
Yeah, I saw it when you guys created your draft PRs, and it just said React app, and then it's been updating as you add your commits.
Thanks.
I don't think we decided even, do you want to start, Zenzi, or do you want me to?
You can start.
Okay. I will share screen. Okay, let me clean this up here quick. So, sorry, I was kind of prepared, but I guess I wasn't actually. So we'll just go ahead and start here on the PR with what Zenzi and I were tasked to do this week. We had 3 steps that we had to do. We had to add project dependencies, Firebase and React Firebase hooks. We had to make a change in the Firestore database and have it show up in the app. And then we also had to make a change in the app and make sure that it showed up in the Firestore database. Regarding the project dependencies, that was pretty easy, just to go ahead and do the, and to add them to the project. React Firebase hooks was something that I mean, Firebase and React Firebase hooks were both very new. So this was a lot of learning. And I will say, I'll show first just with the basic app. This is what comes up upon page load. We have the grocery list here, and then created a button to go ahead and link to the Firestore, which I'll go ahead and I'll pull here. There's a huge list going on right now. But we do have, every time you add there, the screen will go away, but it does actually add on here. Yeah, I'm feeling really klutzy with this demo right now. Within, yeah, I really wish that I felt comfortable showing the code right now with everything
Did
here.
you want me to show the code, or?
Yeah, why don't I feel like you're a little bit, I feel like actually you're a lot better with talking through the code than I am. If you would like to show the or continue showing, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll just, yeah, we'll switch off.
Yeah.
So essentially, yes, we downloaded those dependencies, and the goal was to pass the tests for the pull request without creating too much actual UI, because that was not part of our ticket. So we wanted to find a way to test the the database in Firestore without actually creating, doubling and doing the other team's work, essentially. So what we came up with, and let me share my screen. So what we came up with was the idea of first creating this button, which when clicked, and I'll also go through that code as well, when clicked, just gives an ID and sends this reference ID to Firestore. And we went to Firestore and we made sure that if we added our own content, it came down within this collection. So just a brief talk about Firestore is that the larger set is a collection, then collections have documents, and then documents, I believe, have items. So we wanted to start with the collection because we didn't know exactly how we were going to, what our schema was going to look like to start. So I'm just going to go into the app.js component because that's where we did our work, just to kind of keep it simple and assuming that it'll be refactored for actual UI components. So we used the React Firebase hook library, and we use the use collection hook, which allows us to add new items to a collection and new documents to a collection. So as you can see here, we use the Firebase Firestore library, and we add to this list collection. And this is our on-click action that sends the item to that Firestore database that you saw in the UI in the console. And I believe, let me think, is there anything else that we added here? Nothing else that we really added here. I guess just to kind of go over the Firebase part is just to show that most of this was already existing code. They linked it to Firebase for us and gave us the Firebase basic config. All we had to do was create the database and add the URL within this configuration constant. And then I think that all the code that I needed to demo has been demoed, unless there's anything else that anybody else wants to see from the app. That kind of sums it up.
Should we show just how to add an item from this Firestore?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's do that. So you just go into the console, and if you go into Firestore here, hopefully my internet's not blinking out on us. You're just going to add a document because we're already in the list collection, which is the collection that we created using that use collection hook. And I'm just going to give it a tester 23 ID. And that's string, and if you save that, it's still down there, tester 23. This is our test. And if you go to the app, I think I might have to, let's see. Oh my gosh. Oh, there it is. Over here. So it shows up. I don't know why we still have to do things like refresh. I don't quite know exactly what's happening with that part of our app, but that's been a consistent issue as we refactor and troubleshoot. We'll find that as we're refactoring, especially anything with Firebase, we'll go 2 or 3 steps down the line and realize that we've broken our app, but we didn't realize it because the console warnings don't pop up automatically. So that's been the most consistent issue after we figured out exactly how to use Firebase. Did anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. Is it supposed to automatically persist to the DOM when you add it from the back end? I mean, not that that will I don't know, be like a
No, basically, oh, I'm sorry.
no, I was just saying, not that people will be going into the backend and adding, they'll be adding it from our app, but is that where you were saying that you would add something on the back end and it wouldn't show up on the front end until you refreshed?
Well, it's not automatically supposed to. It's something that we added here so that we can see the collection, just so that it's essentially testing, but instead of testing using a standard testing library, we decided to basically allow you to see your changes visually. But the issue with the app breaking and it not showing up in the terminal, I don't know if that's connected to the way we've created these components or not, or whether it's just, the way we're using the hook. I can't quite tell, but it's, as you can see, we're still having some issues with it this morning. Oh, and in relation to, I know that you were talking about refactoring this and making it more updated, and I wasn't sure how far we were going to take it, because this, essentially all of this will go away once we connect it to, refactor it to connect to your parts from this week.
Right.
So I hopped in obviously in the middle of this. Did both teams demo already?
That's it.
Yes, we both.
I'm just hopping into our over here. Emily, did you, I guess, what did y'all go over already? I can hop in here. We've got demos. We have the learning module, which I think you were going to tackle this week, and then I was going to go over issues.
Yeah. So my internet's a little poor right now, so let me see how that goes. But we can keep moving. I'm gonna try to do the code review presentation. Also, let's see.
Yeah, if it happens to drop off, I can pick up on it as well.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm going to share my screen and then give it a go. Okay, let me know if you don't see my screen. I'm just gonna go forth with this. Okay. So I'm gonna present and we're gonna talk about code reviews. So what are the things I'm going to cover today? So one is, what is a code review, the code review cycle, how it moves along. And one thing that's really important is what makes a great code review. And the other part is, how can I help others review my code? And that is where we get feedback, and how I can review other people's code. And then I'll step through exploring code in GitHub a little bit. So what is a code review? We want to make sure we're all in the same mindset. So a code review is a conversation that we're having as a team about the changes that we're making, the features we're adding. It's a place where we share knowledge and we learn from each other. And it's a place to ask questions. It's a way for us to improve as developers. It's where, we know what our team is putting in. So a month from now, 2 months from now, let's say the other team needs to do the Firebase thing, right? So as a reviewer, it's important to understand what is going in, because potentially you could be making changes to that code, which especially in this workshop, it will happen. And as for code review, it's also when you're creating a PR, you need to think about a month from now, 2 months from now, I need to come back to this and make changes, and I need to remember what's going on. So a lot of the comments and things that you add to this conversation is not just to help the other team, but it's to help yourself as well, your future self. So then the code review cycle is you open a PR request and then you ask for feedback. I definitely recommend always ask for feedback. It's how you learn. And you get the review. So as the other person who's reviewing, make sure you spend the time to give feedback, because it helps the cycle, right? We want this middle part of receive and making changes, really going iterations as much times as we can. And then when it gets to a certain place, then we'll merge. And this certain place is really defined by our team. And this is where the acceptance criteria is really important, where we want to stay within scope to not overwhelm ourselves, and also to make sure they're very clear and concise. And that's one of the skills as a team. For here, all the issues are broken down for us. But in a real workplace, sometimes you can receive a Jira ticket from a product manager who's like, do this, and it's an empty description. And you can go crazy, right? There's so much you can do. So breaking it down to a small manageable piece is an important part. And defining that in your PR is definitely very important. So one of the things that, what makes a great code review, one thing we want to focus on is not to get too hang up about stylistic changes, right? Like, oh, your syntax is off, your tabs, like, there's developers who fight about spaces and tabs like forever, and that conversation is never going to end, and that's not productive. So a lot of times, linters and things will fix that for us, right? The code right now we have is all set to clean everything up for us. So that's something that we don't have to worry about. So one thing is we recommend to test out the feature locally, right? Especially if it's a really big feature. Like I've had coworkers in the past who review my PR in like less than 5 minutes, and it was like a big feature, and I was like, I know you did not pull down my code and run it and look at my code, right? So it's important for us to pull it down, run it, click around, try to see how it's working, because again, we're gonna have to maintain this code, we're a team. And so the thing that we want to highlight that's really important to make a good code review is to praise each other, right? Like when you're writing code, depending on what you're building, you can spend a long time on a certain feature. So when you're asking for feedback, it's a very vulnerable thing to do, to put yourself out there and be like, oh, take a look at my code. So definitely praise, point out things that you like about a code, because this is not about what you did wrong, it's about a conversation that we can have as a team, right? And pointing out what a person have done really good is building trust within the team. Like you're trusting somebody to do really good, and it's good to receive that feedback, because there are many ways you can structure code, and hearing like, oh, you did a really good job here, solidifies like, oh, okay, I did great with this pattern, I'm going to reuse it again, right? So we want to encourage that. And the other part about defaulting to approval is trusting each other to fix the little changes, right? Unless it's something really critically bad, but I think, the small little things, you default to approval, as in you trust that, you're suggesting, oh, let's try this. And like, oh, remove the code, like, you have comments, I trust that you'll take care of those and then move on. So the important thing is to also be kind and empathetic in our code reviews, because one, it's depending on what we're building, we can spend a long time in these rabbit holes and feeling really frustrated and and driving ourselves mad sometimes, you know. So when we're putting ourselves out there to say, hey, look at this, you want somebody else to give you good feedback. Yeah, so that's, yeah, so I think to move on. And then another part we want to do is to help each other understand your changes, right? Like, especially if you're using different libraries and you found that there's sample code, there's certain niche thing that is happening, it helps yourself and helps the other team to grab the URL of, say, that library or the sample code and include it in the comments, because a lot of times we can bookmark it somewhere else, but we're not going to remember to go back to that, right? So adding in the comments is also a note to yourself and to others to help them understand. And it also drives the conversations that are being had, right? Yeah, it helps with the conversations. And then try to answer all the questions, because that in itself is it's a practice it's a practice in technical discussions, which is very important for us as a team, and to take your time. I have rushed through things before, and taking your time and making sure you understand the code is a good thing to do. Run the code. So I think this is pretty straightforward. So just want to highlight that it gives you confidence, especially if you run it locally. And not to skip it is important. Making sure you understand the instructions. So the PR should have, like what I saw in the PRs that you've done were really great, like very detailed how to run it. I really love that. So I'd like to see more of that as well from teammates. Let's see, how can I help others review my code? So this is, we want to really highlight this, and this is really important, is how to, you know, having a really meaningful PR description, writing it in a way where it's concise, you're giving information, but you're also not writing a novel, right? Because code review takes time, especially if features and things are you're building a bigger feature. It takes time for someone to really read through your code and understand. So writing a meaningful PR description, meaningful commit messages also help, especially for someone needs to step through the different commits to understand what you were building or what your thought process is. So if it's something that they can look and scan really quick and be able to jump to a certain commit and be like, oh, okay, this is where they did the config. I'm going to jump there and have a deeper understanding. And the other part we recommend is self-review your code. Explain why you did what you did. It's a way to anticipate some of the questions that are going to come in. And again, and I'm going to keep repeating this, you're helping your future self, especially in an environment where, you know, things move fast, right? Code bases, you know, right now we're starting with something from scratch and it's small, but the typical thing is when you join a team, the code base is huge. And every sprint, every feature, everything that gets added in, it just keeps growing. And refactoring time, as much as we want to refactor, is actually just a small percentage. So you can inherit a massive amount of code to really dig through. So anytime that you can explain and even adding questions that this is where we're suggesting to do a draft PR is when you're starting your initial investigation and building things, you yourself have questions, and to add them into the comments gives the team visibility in what your thought process is and where you started. And a lot of times it doesn't have to wait till the very end for the other team to review. I've seen open source, I've seen different situations where a lot of these questions and reviews happen from the start and as you go. And especially for a feature that is very big and ongoing that can cover more than one sprint, let's say you're building something that starts with one sprint and it can go over to the next sprint, right? A lot of these things are dynamic and can change. Then you want to keep having these conversations, and these clarifying questions can help you narrow down and solve things easier. And it's also something to come back to. And we also recommend using screen capturing tools. So there's Loom, which I think everybody is using already. I haven't tried Zapier or Sketch, which is, I hear Zappy is really good. I think Sky can talk about that. But definitely, like, when you do a video of how you would go through, that's also another demo thing, right? Doing the demo is for us to have this conversation as a team. But creating a screen capture of the quick little walkthrough is something you can come back to and then see, like, oh, okay, that's what I was initially thinking. It's a visual thing to come back to. And so now, let me escape out of here. We're going to go to code in GitHub. Let's see. I'm not used to. Right. So I'm going to use.
Oh, I would just, I liked how you were talking about you're doing a favor to your future self, because sometimes you'll be going in, months later, and you'll be looking at a line of code. You'll be like, who the heck did this? And you'll look at it and you'll find that it's yourself. And you just, because life goes on, time goes on, you don't realize that it was you. And then you look back at the PR that kind of like encompassed all of the, that particular change. And, maybe you didn't leave photos, maybe you didn't leave a description, maybe it's not really clear why that change was made. And you have to like hunt this rabbit trail, and it ends up burning a lot of time. So it is truly, you're right. Like you're doing yourself favors, and also your colleagues and anybody else that inherits your code base. I've, worked on apps where they weren't doing pull requests. They were just merging to main, and the commit message was added X, and you're like, well, that doesn't really help anybody here. So continue. Sorry, just wanted to, I liked that particular bit.
No, good. I'm glad thank you for reinforcing that part. And anytime that anybody wants to chime in. Let's see. So I'm going to use, the Firebase connection PR as an example to kind of step through, because it is a bigger feature. And I think a lot of times when it's the harder things and the harder features and the harder things we do, that's more important for us to really have the conversation. And I also love all the comments everybody is adding, and I want to highlight that in terms of going through. So when you're reviewing code, definitely go through this description, read through it, understand what the acceptance criteria are, and you're reviewing the code based on these acceptance criteria, right? We want to stay within scope. It's okay to have recommendations like how Jane recommended, we want to be more semantic in terms of how we're displaying certain things and such, which is really great. I love that. And that's something, it's a conversation and a good suggestion, but it's not something that has to be in this PR for it to merge, right? So I want to highlight, and having the screen capture of the Firestore was also a good win, because Firebase, as great as it is, I also think the interface is really annoying. When I first use it, I'm always like, where do I go to look at the database? The way they name their thing is like real-time database. You think it should be there, but it's not. You have to go to Cloud Firestore. So doing this kind of thing is helping your team know, like, oh, this is where I look for it. Anything that you can add to your PR to help your team member, because as the other team who is reviewing, you're also working on building features and stuff, right? So you're stopping your development to switch to this other mindset of reading somebody else's code, and they're coming in with no context. So whatever context you can give them will help speed up the process. So I also want to highlight, I really love the steps here. It's very clear. And a lot of times, So Sky have a really good example of, you know, leaving comments, doing suggestions and explanations. So a lot of times the way to do it is when you come in, look at the descriptions, look at the test things, and then usually when you leave a comment in like the overall PR here is where you want to encompass like a general questions, general comments is where you add the comment here. And then when you're ready to look at the individual files, you want to click on Files Change right here. And this gives you a really good view. So for me, I have checked that I viewed it, right? So this is another thing to help visually, that it collapses some of the individual files so that you can see. So here I checked it. Here we have, you know, the individual files, it checks. And then here adding inline comments, which I think some of you already learned how to do that. I just want to highlight that you can, so I'm gonna add here. So this is where I would add a message to my future self, right? So right here is React Firebase hooks. And it's like, oh, why did we use this? What is this? Where did I get it from? So here is like, so here is adding a link, docs for reference, right? So you add that comment there. This is to help yourself. This is like for my future self. Oh, where did I get used collection? What can I do to find more, right? So this is the package that we have recommended. There are different things you could do and such. So it's a good idea to add these links to help yourself. And then let me go back. So that's one place to add. Again, default to praising and highlighting positive code that you see. And I think I just want to express the resolve conversation. So a lot of times when someone say, I think one of the questions that came up is, though, there's a request for change. What do I do after that? How do I get it to disappear? You can click on resolve change and it goes away. So it makes the things more clear. And also as you're reviewing code, it helps to look at what your other teammates are saying. So you want to be a part of the conversation, not just ignore, like not just breeze through this and then type whatever you have thoughts in mind, right? Like keeping in mind that this is a conversation. Sometimes what the questions you have or certain things you want to say could already be addressed already. And then what else am I forgetting? I think Lauren showed a really cool way of where you can suggest code, which is new to me. So here you can insert a suggestion. When you click on this, it pops up, it grabs this code and you can directly write app. And when you add that, it gives you this suggestion. And what this does is it makes it really easy for the other person to take this and just commit the suggestion. I'm not going to do it here, but it was something that Lauren, one of the other mentors for, I think, for Team 22, highlighted this part. And I was like, oh, this is even new to me. I learned something new. But I'll delete this. But it's another way to do it. I wasn't aware, so I ended up typing it out using Markdown. Let's see. Oh, and one other thing that was really good to see is when you want to dive through each commit so that it's more highlighted. Like let's say we just want to see this piece right here. Now, when you click on the commit, it focuses on just what that commit does in the comments that applies to that one. So you get a better focus of of the change. So you can step through the individual commits in that way to get a better understanding. And sometimes this is necessary when it's like a bigger feature that you're building. So here we look at, oh, and this one really didn't have much changes. Oh, yeah, that one didn't really have much changes. In this case, it's not very helpful. Let's see. Sky, am I forgetting anything else in GitHub that we should highlight?
The only thing I would say is if we go back here to the list of the files changed.
Mm-hmm.
And forgive me if you already said this one, but sometimes you can click and you can add ad hoc comments. But if we were to go and try to make a comment right now on any line, just for fun, you can do the start a review button. So right now, if you typed in something there and you did add single comment, it's going to post it right away to the conversation page. Sometimes, and what that can result in is, and it's totally valid. If you have one comment, I would absolutely do that. But if you click, for instance, start a review right now, it's just going to queue that up. It's not actually going to post it to the page. And so you see that it says pending next to it. Now, so if you're going down and you're doing a review, the general workflow that I do is, like you were saying, is in the conversation page, go and kind of look at all the conversations, see what's going on, and then come to the files changed. And then as I'm going down, and like you said, you click on the viewed as you've seen files just to keep things kind of tidy. When you're adding comments here, do the starter review, and it just kind of puts it into a holding kind of pending spot. So as you add maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 comments at the end, then in the top right, you can click finish your review, that green button, and then you make maybe a general overall comment, like looks good, added a few small comments about how Firestore is being used. Great job on the hooks. And then, you can mark it as comment, approve, or request changes. And when you click submit review right there, where it says one pending, let's not do it because we just did a letter, but like one pending comment right there, it will kind of like package all those comments, and all the comments will post as one kind of chunk. So it can be also kind of nice to your peers because they're not getting an email ping of like, Skylar added a comment. Skylar added a comment. And you're like, oh, hey, geez, Skylar added a comment. It kind of just does it, posts it as like one complete unit. And there's still totally a reason to just add a single comment. Like if it's outside of a review, like, yeah, just do kind of singular ones. But that like starting a review functionality can be nice to kind of chunk it.
I laughed because I think when I was commenting yesterday, I kept pinging Skylar.
I like that. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get in and look at these code changes. I hadn't done that yet. So
okay, so I think that covers the GitHub part. So we can come back to here. Let's see what else is there. Here's some further readings. I'll share the slide afterwards, but I think we're missing this one. So here is more of a discussion, right? So we want to hear your thoughts, like what have your experience been in the past with code reviews, and how did you feel about doing code reviews this week, and also how has it felt in the last week in terms of like in comparison to your past experiences for code reviews. So this is more of a discussion for everybody to talk about their thoughts and to share their thoughts.
I wasn't around last week, but like Anna, Lauren, Zinzi, I guess James and you and I talked a little bit. Jessica, did some of y'all came from boot camps, right?
I did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Is everybody a boot camper? No. Yeah, so I guess I'm kind of curious because that can make a big difference, and because sometimes these boot camps have very like specific review processes. And how did I don't know, Jessica, how was your experience there?
Our experience, I mean, they did lay out some of the basics with how to do a code review, and submitting pull requests and all that, but it, at least like when we did our group project, it felt very, I don't know, it was just, I didn't feel like I was really clear on how, for lack of a better term, how thoughtful I should be during a code review. Like to this, going over this today, and then just even this past week, I feel that I would have benefited a lot from hearing more about how to do a code review within a pull request. Just to be, yeah, the fact that it's a conversation, that didn't really occur to me before. It felt more like you're looking for errors so that it doesn't screw everybody up in the long run. And that was kind of that's at least what I came away with. So they were just kind of like this added extra step that you're supposed to do, and nobody wants to do these, but we have to do them. Fine, okay. Click, 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 keep going.
Yeah. And then on the opposite side, I guess, Zenzi, were you in the same, or which, were you in a similar situation with the boot camp?
My boot camp didn't do code reviews.
Okay. Is like merging to the main branch most of the time, or?
Well, we just, most of our work was solo, and it was assessed by a grader. So that was essentially our code reviews, but we were not a part of it. So we might get an assignment and it would have parameters, and we'd submit it, and then we'd get it back and they say, you need to do thing A, B, and C. But that was our code review, but it was one-sided. We weren't reviewing each other's code.
Well, once we get used to this, I guess I have hopes and dreams that this will be a little less stressful than than kind of a grading intense process where it's like one-way communication. And Anna, how are you finding it?
I've never done it before. Like the closest I've come to it was trying to go through the process of creating pull requests on my own projects, and then reviewing my own code, and then approving and merging my own pull requests. My past job, it was in a very small startup, and my boss didn't really review any of my code because he didn't really like front end. So he was just like, yeah, whatever, if it works, it's fine. And he never reviewed anything. And my current job, I'm still in the onboarding phase, so they're not letting me touch anything yet. I'm just shadowing other people, but it's already been a step up because I get to see other people work, and they actually go through this process, and they do pull requests and code reviews and everything. So this is great practice. It's a little scary, but it's great to actually go through the process with other people.
Yeah, and I would say, maybe this week was a little scarier than what most code reviews, because you're learning a user interface in the GitHub, the GitHub kind of layout. And we're talking about what these all buttons and comments and et cetera, et cetera. But then also because this is our first week, we're making a bit more noise in there. So there's more information to scroll through and read other people's comments. I'd say, as we kind of find our footing here, things are going to become, not only you're going to be more familiar, but also maybe the comments will be more concise and fewer of them. I mean, still some good, valuable comments, but it will be a little less noisy of an operation. So I can just assure you that it gets easier. It certainly gets easier as we find our rhythm here.
And James, do you have anything to share about your code review experiences?
Yeah, so with Flatiron, there was a review process for your project. Absolutely, that was pretty structured and rigid. In terms of in GitHub, everything that I don't know how it was for people who did it in person, but I did my online, and so you would pull down a repo that had some tests to pass. You would work on it and you would push it up, and that was just your own local area environment, and then your local repo. I'm not gonna look, but just your specific repo. There was no like process for pulling down other people's work and looking at that. So I didn't get that. But I did get good at talking about my code and presenting it decently. It was, the first couple ones were like terrifying. But this is really great. I'm with Jessica in a lot of ways in terms of I wasn't prepared for how much of a process and conversation this is, but I'm really enjoying it. I see the value in it. It's I imagined myself in a production environment, and I imagine myself just coding away like 90% of the time, and maybe I would talk about it, but no, I see that it's much different ratio. It's much more of this like kind of like explaining and reviewing and it's cool. I like it. I like that it adds those. It's like a system of checks and balances. So I'm excited to kind of develop that flow a little bit more.
Should we move over to our issues for week 2 or week 1, I guess we call it, but because we're zero indexing our weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share the screen here. All right. Can everybody see my screen? I can make it a little bigger here as well. Awesome. Yeah, so the way that these project boards work, kind of a Kanban thing, we've got these ready for peer review. I know we haven't merged these in necessarily. We'll put those ready for mentor review. I think is one of them or both of them are approved, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's just go ahead and call those approved. They're not merged yet, but those there might be an automation in here that throws those to merged when they get there. But let's put 3 and 4 into progress, and I'll just kind of talk about them a little bit, and then we can figure out the sorting of. I don't know how y'all did it last weekend as far as assignments and the previous cohort that I worked with. It was just kind of all right, who's attracted to what, and let's mix up the teams, have it switch off each week. But let's go and click to the issue. So as a user, and these are the kind of traditional user stories, which are a great way to frame the problem. As a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchased items. So the functionality is going to be that, let's see, a shopping list contains of a set of items associated with the user's token. So, okay, we've got a relationship between some kind of token, and that allows you to see a list of items. Creating a new list consists of the following sequence. You generate a new unique token. You save the token to local storage. We show the user the list view. And then let's see, the following script should be used to generate a suitable token. So let's see, I don't have my code editor up, but there's a file in the repo in the lib folder called tokens.js, and it's just it's a text or a JSON, or it's a list of it's an object with a lot of tokens. I think that they're just random kind of 2 or 3 word kind of password type things. And so for users who don't already have a token list, a button exists on the home screen that allows them to create a new list. So create list, I guess, would appear if they don't already have a token or a list. Clicking the button generates a new token and saves it to local storage. So I'm reading this as we go over to tokens and get a token and then save it to local storage. And local storage, we can dig into what that is. Local storage is just a way of the browser to save small bits of information related to your website. So there's an API for how to interact with a browser's local storage. And I think there are also some React hooks that make it a lot easier to put things into local storage and pull them out. Kind of like a key value store type thing. Once the token's been created and saved, the user's redirected to the list view. And for users who do have a token already saved in local storage, they should be redirected to the list view. So to kind of summarize that, the way I read that is when the page loads, if you don't have a list, have a create list button. And if you already have a list, or which is a token in the browser, so if it recognizes that there's a token, then it just goes straight to showing the list. And then if you don't have it, the create button, when you click it, it should automatically then go and show. So maybe there's 2 components here. I mean, there's many ways to do it. The component either changes or you have 2 components. So that's what that is. I think we actually have an image. So if I go Yeah, so there's some in the repo, there's some resources, and we can see, I want to stress, we're not looking for styling yet. Styling something that we do very, very late down the road. So we'll just focus on functionality here. But this kind of wireframe might be something that on a team, a designer has given you something to run off of. So it's a good visual tool for understanding. So welcome to your smart shopping list. Create a new list. And we're not going to do this functionality yet, but there's later on, there's a story about joining an existing shopping list. So you can do a token to join an existing one, so that maybe like Lauren and I would have a combined one. Maybe Lauren and Yenli would have a combined one, and they could join they could share that 3-word token with each other. Does anybody have any questions on that user story? Cool. So we'll just dive right into the next one. So number 4, as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. Okay. So a shopping list consists of the following data points. This is pretty straightforward. There's a name of an item. We want to keep track of how soon you're likely to build it again. So soon, kind of soon, not soon. And they give you some kind of information here. We have, in the next 7 days, 7 to 14 days, like greater than 7 days, up to 14 days, and then, beyond 14 days to 30 days. And then the last purchase dates. There's really 3 kind of bits. We're having maybe a string of the name, maybe an integer, or some kind of, way of capturing the time frame, the how soon, maybe a string, could be soon, kind of soon, not soon. And then the last purchase date, which could be is a date captured in a string as well, that maybe you're applying into a date object. So just 3 things that you want to capture. And what's our acceptance criteria here? Once we get this all buttoned up, and again, publish a draft PR. Don't need to have this all buttoned up when you're sharing it initially, but the user's presented with a form that allows them to enter the name of the item and how soon they anticipate needing it. So there'll be a form with a name field and the frequency. And then this last purchase date, it looks like, that's going to be kind of automatic based on when you enter it. So that's nice. You only need to show 2 form fields. And then when the user submits the form, it's saved to the database and associated with the user's token. Along with the item name and integer, okay, they're kind of giving us some breadcrumbs here. An integer corresponding to the estimated number of days until the next purchase is saved, 7, 14, 30. Okay, so that sorts out, it's kind of speaking aloud up here about, well, we could use a string, we could use an integer. The acceptance criteria is being a bit more specific. It's saying that we should use an integer here. Last purchase date should be set to null initially, because you can create an item without purchasing it. Okay, that's good to know. And item names should be displayed as simple unordered list on the list view after they're added. So that's important, an unordered list. So bullet points, not numbers, not letters, just a bullet point list of things. And we kind of already have that set up in one of your branches with the list of items. So we're already on our way. Any questions on any of the details for this one? I assume everybody can hear me, right? I'm not muted.
Yeah, you're good.
Sounds good. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. So yeah, let's get these assigned. The groups last week. Let's just mix it up. So Jessica, I'll just pick on you. Does anybody have any particular interest in any issue? Or sorry, somebody was saying something there.
Oh, I think the teams are assigned, I think.
Oh, they are. Okay. Last cohort, we didn't do that, so I'm sorry. So do we have?
I think this week is James and Zamzi working together, and I think is Jessica and Anna. So then it's more of what the teams want to work on.
Sweet. Yeah, we're just switching it up every week for who's with who, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any particular affinity or desire to work on one of these issues more than another? I would say, general rule of thumb would be do the thing that you didn't do before. But at the same time, if you could feel like if you've embedded time in the list and you want to continue working there, or you want to and work on some new functionality, like working with Firebase to set up the data, kind of the data structure for those list items. That could be cool too.
Zinzi, why don't you choose which one we want to do? I'm pretty happy with either.
Yeah, it does not matter to me either way. One of us, because one of us is going to work on Firebase, and both teams have a person that worked on it, so there's no way for us to be as a team doing a thing that we didn't do last week.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Did you last week? Were you interested in Firebase last week? I don't remember.
Sure. I mean, it'd be fun to work on. And now I've got you there to help hold my hand.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Sounds good. Okay, so just to confirm, the setting up the shopping list items, is that the one y'all wanted?
Is that the is number 4 the Firebase one?
Yeah, you're setting up the data structure and showing, configuring the list. So we will. Sounds good.
Yeah, get to work with date times or maybe. Woohoo.
All righty. Sounds good. All right. This here, and then sorry, your lovely faces are blocking my screen here on the right side, so I couldn't get to the window. And then what is your, Anna, what is, so there we go. We've got it there. Cool. There we go.
James, I have a meeting, but I'll catch up with you on Slack and we'll set up a thing.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll figure out a good time.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sharing my screen here. And then did we lose Jessica? Are you here? Oh, there you are. Couldn't see your face for a second there. I'm like, I know I went over time, but come on, stick with me. Sounds good. So we've got the issues assigned. Any questions on the cadence for the week or the issues themselves or buttoning up the issues from the previous week and merging those in? I guess I mentioned this, James and I had a chat yesterday to go over some issues. And I brought up the fact that that we're going to have merge conflicts for the usually bigger ones in the first few weeks because we're all operating on the same components. I don't know if y'all already talked about that, so I don't want to double up on that. No, so you're going to have this on any team that you ever work with. You're going to have, if you're working on the same code base, you're going to be occasionally touching the same files. And so you're going to have merge conflicts because it's going to be a race. If you're both checking out separate branches off of main, and then you're both touching the same files, whoever merges first wins. And the other person is going to have merge conflicts. It's not going to let you merge because it doesn't, sometimes it's smart. And even if you're operating on the same files, it'll know that you touched line 3 through 15 and we touched line 100 through 115, and it can kind of smart diff those things. But sometimes if you're touching the same code base, the same functions, you're going to get merge conflicts. And particularly early on where we're all just operating in app.js. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we're all just operating in app.js. The same files, essentially, we're going to have merge conflicts. So it's not a race. You don't want to try to beat the other person out to merging, so you don't have to deal with it. It's actually a really nice exercise to go through and figure out merge conflicts. Can be frustrating to kind of go in and dig on it, but we're here to help. So I don't know if you both, oh, cute, James. Got the family. What's that?
She had just got back from a sleepover with her friend.
Oh, nice.
One of her first sleepovers.
Oh, yay. That's a milestone and a half. Yeah, so I don't know are we both ready to merge, both groups?
I think we are.
Okay.
And that was my question actually, because now we're going to be creating new branches, right, for these new tickets. And are we going to be creating them off of main? And shouldn't first we do the merge and then create the new branches? I don't know what would be the best way to go about it.
Definitely. So you can, I mean, Git is very, very flexible. You can open branches off of branches, off of branches, off of branches, off of branches. Like you can go down that rabbit hole if you want. But it is much cleaner and less cognitively intense to have the idea of this week's work. We merge it into main. So one group will merge into main. There'll be some conflicts. We'll sort those out. We'll merge the other into main, and then we open our branches off of that kind of completed main branch. So I would say that's probably the best workflow. You can make it more complicated, but I don't think at this point that would give us any benefit. So yeah, and yeah, so I don't know. Hey, whoever's ready to merge, if you've got approvals on your PR, go ahead and merge, and then probably in Slack today before we start opening other branches. Between Yanlei, Lauren, myself, will kind of assist on any kind of merge conflicts if there are any issues with that, and we'll get both branches merged.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that when you're starting off on the next task to, after all the merges are happening, you pull the latest from main. So you get the latest from main, and then you create your new branches from there for this next week's task to save yourself any having to update things. So it's a good practice to start.
And if there are, when you're pulling in, so if one, group A goes and merges, group B goes and does a Git pull, you're likely going to see some merge conflicts. And did y'all go over anything like that in the Git module?
No, we didn't go into detail. It was one of those things that when it comes up, we should.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe we could, we're kind of running out of time here, but if running into issues, I'm available all day. And so we can talk about it on Slack, but if we need to pop into a Zoom and do a screen share, that's not a problem as well. It could be faster.
I was gonna ask, since I was having issue with the code this morning running locally, and I'm not sure how that works with the merging and if it matters who merges first, especially if the code was having a little bit of issue this morning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say let's kind of try to treat them separately. Did we figure out what the code issue was?
Nope.
Okay.
It was running last night after I took all of your suggestions. It was running beautifully. Then this morning I shut everything down, restarted my computer, and then I tried to run it and it doesn't work. But if you take the link from the PR, it does work.
Okay. Sometimes, so Firebase is a really nice tool. Sometimes it does do some kind of like persistence and caching on the back end. It's kind of a little bit voodoo magic. So you like a quick and easy way. I mean, I did share that bit about clearing your cache, but a quick way to do it is you can just open up an incognito or private browser, depending on your browser. And that could be a way of, it might work, might not work, but it could get rid of a class of issues.
Yeah, it seems to be like the build isn't running. So I think it might, yeah, I'm having the same issues as well, which doesn't make sense. So maybe this is something that if you have time to jump on a call with Jessica to debug.
For what it's worth, I've got it running locally on my machine. I made sure to pull in the latest whatever is on there right now from GitHub, and I've got it up running. I just had what I'm finding, and I didn't know this is something that I haven't experienced before, but I'm having to hit npm install to update every single time I do any sort of Git pull.
So
it shouldn't, yeah.
Right. So I know that's weird. I know, so I don't know why it's doing that, but it is resolving my issues.
So with that, okay, so I do have a thought on that. When you do, do you have a console right now?
Yep.
when you do npm minus v space like -v, what's the version of your npm?
npmv, okay. 6.1411.
Okay. You might consider updating to the like in our README, we have the instructions for installing the latest node.
Okay.
You might want to move up to the latest LTS. Don't go to the latest version, but the long-term service. I think that's what LTS stands for.
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
so the issue is that when it's handling dependencies, I noticed that when you do npm install, if it's changing in your lock file, so your package-lock.json, if that file changes, and if you notice at the top that it's changing the version number, like it'll say version 0, version 1, version 2, version 3.
Okay.
If we're changing the version number, that's an indication that you're on a version of node that's either like too far ahead or too far behind the project. For the sake of simplicity, we haven't dug into like node version managers and things like that. But if we're all on the latest long-term support version, which is, oh gosh, it's like 14, I think it's like 14.6 or something like that. It's just whatever, if you go to the node's website.
Okay.
I was going to say, I just did what James suggested with the npm install and then npm start. It works fine.
Oh, cool.
That
Yeah,
works
14.6.
same thing works. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So for me, it's not npm. It's I use yarn. So it's something about the node modules needing to reinstall again that was having the problem. So I'm not sure if it's the Firebase package. So I did a yarn install, yarn start, and things are all good.
I have to do the same thing when I'm on the other branch, which doesn't have anything to do with Firebase. Remember this morning I said, hey, Anna, can you share it? Because I hadn't hit npm install to update, but it's like, it's weird because I have to do it every single time, which I've never experienced before. I won't, what I mean? I do it when I add something or pull something down for the first time, but.
Could this be as simple as one of the branches doesn't have Firebase installed? So if you do npm install on your branch and it's getting rid of the dependency, then you go back to that branch and you have to npm install to like re-add it.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing for React Router DOM.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Like, your node modules need to be updated when you're switching between branches, like it's missing those dependencies. Right.
So I mean, so maybe it's just that's normal, and or maybe once we get these two branches merged, it won't be less of an issue.
Yeah, we're not going to have too many more dependencies, but this is a good exercise in highlighting little gotchas here and there. I mean, it's not all about writing code. It's also about the, the build toolkit and some of those things that can go along, or your browser having bad cache, like we learned with, the hot reloading wasn't working for some of the teams. You had to hard refresh it to get rid of some errors. So there's, the build tools aren't perfect. Sometimes you got to do little funny things to dance around them.
Should I do a merge?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Let's do it. Merge and create routes, JCAR. Okay. Oh, you know what? I got npm install. Let's see. Silly goose. No, it just.
Hold on. You can merge on GitHub.
Oh, you don't do it from the command line?
You do it from GitHub.
Ooh, how do I unmerge?
Locally?
Yeah.
It might not be a problem. So go to your PR. Okay. And at the very bottom of your PR, there should be, or where is it?
Oh, it's ready to be closed, it looks like. Oh wait, never mind. I see merge pull crystal.
Yeah. So there should be a big, there should be a big green button that says merge pull request.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys don't do it from the command line. Okay. I'm just so used to doing it from that. My bad.
I think the command line is more of if you're pulling certain things, if you're pulling from the main branch where the other team is making changes and you need their stuff into your local branch, then I would use that to git merge certain things to update your different branches, to make sure that it's up to date as you're working along and you're not working on old code. But for merging PRs, I usually do it through the browser here, and it's really quick and easy.
Got it.
So that's
Yeah, I
what,
agree with you. And like, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, so that's what Jessica has to do today, right? She'll have to do the git pull for main, merge that into her local, and then she can do.
Since I went first. Okay.
Yeah, pull requests don't exist in Git. They're a GitHub concept. Oh, that's, yeah, I agree with what Yen's saying there.
Yeah, so I recommend, I mean, will there be conflicts with this one? Usually GitHub, like the pull request will tell you.
Okay.
Well,
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can go ahead and just kind of hop in here and take a peek. So we have one open pull request. We'll go into the pull request. And if we go down to the bottom, yep. So we can see the merge pull request is grayed out. There are two conflicting files. This one is kind of expected because we've, the dependencies changed in the package.json. That's probably also going to be a very easy one to resolve. And then this one's kind of like I was saying earlier, the app.js, we're all operating off of the same file. So that's going to be a bit more complicated. Now, you can see it says use a web editor command line. Usually we'd use command line. So I would say somebody on the team here should handle going through this, and we could talk through it. We could stay on this call or hop on another call, whatever everybody is most comfortable with.
I got a few moments here, but whatever, where everyone wants to do. But I'm very interested in this. This is like the part that I really want to see. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Jessica, do you want to step through it?
yeah, sure.
All right. I'll let you drive and we'll just kind of collaborate together on get through it.
Sounds good. All right. Got that there. All right, so pull request, here we go.
And so, yeah, so the pull request is going to be, is going to have that conflict, and it's given us some hints. Usually we would probably also do this in the command line, because let's think about what's happened here. There was another branch that was merged into main. So main has changed, and now we need that main, in order to merge into main, we need to incorporate those main changes into our branch. So what I'd recommend doing is in your terminal. Yeah, there you go. So if you're on your branch,
yep. Git pull.
Let's just double check. Yeah, Git pull is going to pull, since you're tracking your upstream branch. We can do that just to make sure that everything matches here between what's on your, in case your teammate merge something. Okay, cool. So we're up to date. And so I guess, Yenli, what would you say, or Lauren, would you how would you recommend pulling in? There's I use rebase, but I know that we don't typically do rebase and TCL.
I see. I would recommend, well, right now her branch will potentially have conflicts. So I think git checkout main, pull the latest from, oh, it already has main, yeah. I think
I'm on board with that.
Yeah, so we already have the latest from main. So now is git.
Are we in main right now?
Oh, yeah, maybe go back and check what branch you're in, git branch.
I'm in, yeah, I should be in my branch there.
Okay, so now you want to merge main into your branch. So I would say git merge main.
Like that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Shouldn't she pull from main first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh, the git pull did not get main. Yeah, so git checkout main. Sorry.
It's okay.
Now do a git pull to get the latest from main. Okay. So that's the latest from main. Now you switch back to your branch.
Mm-hmm.
now there's a fun little trick here. I don't know if we're into learning tricks right now, but instead of typing that branch out, you can just do hyphen and it will check out the last branch that you were on before you made the switch. So git checkout main or git checkout and then hyphen is just the dash just basically means the previous branch that I was on before this one.
Oh, I learned something new. So now is where you do a git merge main into your local branch.
So git merge main.
Mhm. This is, yeah, this is telling, yeah. So now your local branch will pop up these conflicts. You see there's a conflict in app.js
Mm-hmm.
and package.json. So now you want to open app.js.
How do I can never get this to go away.
Maybe escape.
Thank you. Okay. So here we are.
So this is a new kind of probably something that we've not seen before and the VS Code is kind of helping us, but it's also adding some complications. So it's adding this color highlighting, which it's just know that that's not the meat of the situation here. Do you see where if we scroll up a little bit to the top of that green block, do you see how it has the chevrons and head and it says current change?
Yes.
And then down below, it has equals between the green and the purple. And then it has the arrow, main incoming change. So what it's saying here is there's a conflict that Git was not able to sort out on its own. And it's saying the incoming change is coming from main. And the green stuff is the stuff that was existing in your branch. And it's saying, I don't know how to resolve these differences. I need you to do it for me. And so what we're required to do is eventually get rid of all those. Our result that we want is to not have the chevrons or those equal signs because those are just ways of it chunking out. But we need to make a change here in the code that resolves the conflict. And so there's no automatic anything. It's being like, hey, I don't know how to do this. You need to do this for me. So if we look at the code, it looks like, okay, so here's the imports. So maybe that's where we would start tackling this is let's kind of unify the imports. So,
I mean, like what I would do, I would just highlight, move them up top with the rest of my imports and then double check and erase anything that was duplicated.
spot on. Yeah.
If you scroll up to the top, you can do, you can say accept both changes. And then that'll accept both of them, and then you can do your editing like you were saying.
Okay.
Well, I learned a thing. Thank you, Lauren.
Whoa, that's way easier.
Then have to go and cut out all the chevrons and delete those lines. Nice.
So now it's just a matter of combining and making sure nothing is duplicated, which I'm not seeing any, well.
2 and 6.
Yeah, so I should erase 2.
I mean, well, and then that begs the question is how do we have duplicated CSS files? Because it looks like they were different. If we like Command Z and bring that back just for a second.
So I know that Anna and James added the style sheets app.css, and I know that Zenzi and I we ignored what was auto in our code. But is there another step we should take other than just what is in my brain kind of thing?
Well, I'm just curious, if we can delete this import, but then it begs the question is, do we have 2 different app.css files? But I'm not seeing one.
We just created a directory for style sheets just in case, some of my workflows might have a responsive one and one, you know what I mean? So I just moved
file?
Just moved it. Yep.
Okay, so number 2, that file doesn't exist anymore. So yeah,
Nope.
definitely get rid of that. But it's just, you might want to think, okay, well, I'm removing an import, so should I remove the file? Or, in this case, it was already removed. So
Okay. So then that should be everything there, and I can scroll down to the next section to resolve, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So this is going to be the fun one, probably.
Well, so you added a router, right? And then everything, hopefully, I guess the naive without looking at it here is that, that all that UI, that div and the grocery list can be copied and pasted somewhere within this,
That's what I think too.
this router stack.
Right.
But I'm not sure. Or into another file. If you've divided it out into different components, you could copy that into one of the components.
I mean, that's what's going to happen eventually, right? That whole chunk right there in green is going to be in its own file, right?
For its own component? Yeah. Or
Mhm.
its own file, yeah, you're right.
So maybe we do what Lauren recommended and accept both and just make it a bit messy for the moment.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So
I would just copy and paste that whole div and throw it somewhere inside of the app for now. And probably for now outside of the switches, just so that you can see it on the screen.
okay. And I get to leave the return there.
Yep.
So we'll cut that. And you said to put it outside of the switch?
Here, I want to show you something. Undo that, do a control Z or whatever your command is. If you do that same thing with X, so control X, it'll cut it and save it to your clipboard. It's really fast. I use it a lot.
Or command
Command
X.
X.
Mhm. And then you can just, I love that command. I use it like all the time.
So I didn't review the PR yet that did this change with the router, but the way I'm looking at it is that we have a router, and within that we have a div called app, and then we've got a switch, and then is that list component? So would we put all this inside that list component instead of putting it here, or do we want to leave it here?
Well,
Or are these like, is this nav up at the top? Is that what the switch block is?
the nav bar is the 2 buttons that switch between the 2. It's why it's out. It'll always I'm assuming it'll always persist on the screen for the so that it's just those 2 buttons, those 2 links that you get the bold styling when they're activated.
Well, I guess what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing an end, like Jessica, you have 41 selected, which is nav bar end. And unless I'm blind, I'm not seeing a nav bar opening.
Oh, that's just their extra component. They're just importing their navbar component.
It's from
Oh, I see. Oh, it's an open and a close. Got it. Sorry. Yeah, of course, because the / is at the end of the line. So do we just want to put it below there?
I would recommend putting it below there as to simplify this merge, because this is temporary code that will be moved into another component in the next task. We don't want to lose the, it does an on-click and the functionality is on the top of this page. So it's a good idea to leave it there for now.
I missed it, and I'm sure it's there. Is the on-click and all that still persisted? I just didn't see it in the file. So is it up? Is it up on lines 20 through something?
Yeah, you scroll up, the on-click function is here. So that's why we want to keep it here for this merge, just to simplify.
Yeah, I think so too.
And leave the task for moving into component as the next issue.
So then, Jessica, I would just fix the formatting here. I don't know if you have, a formatting tool that automatically does it on save, but we can just nest, we can select and just tab indent things so they kind of line up.
I had it working at one point and I don't know what happened.
Prettier is what I use, but it's so.
See, I have Prettier on and it never does.
Do you have 2 little check marks down at the bottom, like somewhere at the bottom in, and I don't know if I'm actually seeing your bottom of VS Code. If there's 2 little check marks there, it's activating, it's working. But if not, then
I got an exclamation point with Prettier. So yeah, I bet I have to look and
Yeah.
Well, you can click on it and see. I mean, maybe this is again a rabbit hole that maybe we don't want to dig into right now, but it's
Right.
probably, I saw some error a minute or two ago that said that it couldn't find the config file. But regardless, you tabbed it twice. We've got it. And then I would just say at the top, there's probably by the return, the open of the return. I think there's some extra spacing that we can get rid of there.
Okay.
And then it looks like this, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other than that, it looks like we've resolved what's going on for the app.js, correct?
Yeah, so I'd run it, npm install, npm run, and let's just validate that it, doesn't throw us any kind of funny errors. And
don't forget that install.
I think you still need to do the merge conflict in package.json first.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what's going on.
resolve the package.json conflict. Okay.
Look at Yenling with that senior knowledge.
Okay.
Go back to VS Code.
Oh yeah. So
You just need to open the package.json file.
there we go.
Yeah. And then this one, you want to accept both changes.
Boom.
Yeah.
That was easy.
Scripts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you dream that every merge conflict goes?
Right.
Also, if you forget what files are being changed on the upper left, I don't know what that's called, but where the little 7 is.
Yep.
It'll show things that like where the merge conflicts are. If you end up getting, I don't know, if you lose the console, that's what I'm trying to say.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So I'll just for luck install.
Yeah.
It was really helpful to just talk about like that.
Yeah, I remember seeing merge conflicts for the first time and feeling like I was like, I should be able to know how to do this, but it's just such a foreign thing with all those chevrons and the blocks.
Yeah.
And like,
I thought I'd something.
And I was like, yeah, when I finish, do I leave those things so that when you continue, does it remove them, or do I need to remove them?
No, this is very incredibly helpful. I'm super glad we're doing this. Let's see what we get. All our hard work. So I didn't know, one thing I didn't know, Yunli, is that if like I prefer Yarn, but I noticed that the package JSON, the NPM version was there from the repo. So you can work locally in Yarn, even though someone else has got on an NPM, and it won't create those. Okay, had no idea. Because I know you don't want a Yarn lock and a package unit lock, because that's bad. But I just went NPM just to be safe.
I feel like it's interchangeable. It seems.
But you don't want both package or both lock files there, because then you get problems, right?
True. Yeah. So if you're, if like I'll use whatever the project kind of requires, but sometimes I will make a mistake just because I use Yarn more, like Yarn where I'll be like, oh, Yarn install, and then I'll get the file and I'll just have to go remove it before I go push any code to remote.
Right.
I don't.
Okay. So just paying attention to that.
And it'll bark at you.
That looks great.
This is where Git status is really good. Is like there's certain files you don't check in, and like the lock files is probably one of them. So I usually add in the Git ignore, so that helps me out. So
you put the lock files in the Git ignore.
Yeah, especially in cases like this where it would create a problem, like you're saying. Like I would just add it into the Git ignore. But I always do Git status and look at what my files are before the actual commit. So then I don't add things that are unnecessary. It's just something I do for myself. So now that everything's working, Jessica, you would do Git status to see your files, and you want to do Git commit of your merge files. Yeah, so now those are merged and you know they're working. So you
Let's
want to
expand
do
that window.
Okay, so so I'm still on my branch.
So you do a git add,
Okay.
and then now you say git commit. Your message is like merge conflicts.
What's Husky?
That's something with a pre-hook, I believe, that basically there was like a prettier thing. So when this gets pushed up, I think it gets formatted for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to learn how to configure that. That's new to me and I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So now you can do a git push your branch.
In my branch, okay.
I think git push should work.
If we've set it to track the upstream, then yeah, Git Push it by itself, and otherwise it'll just give us an error.
Yeah.
Cool, sweet.
Yeah, so now you can go to your PR and take a look at, it'll show the latest of what's changed. And
So what would happen if, and I'm not going to do it because I'm now I know to use the GitHub to merge, but what would happen if I did git, checkout main, git merge my branch or whatever into from the command line?
you still have to push up your local main branch to GitHub.
Yeah, I don't think on the repo that we have restrictions from merging, from just pushing straight to main, but you would essentially be bypassing this whole PR, and this PR would be sitting there dangling.
Gotcha. Okay.
Unmerged, and it would be unmergeable as well because it would have also, the code might have a hard time diffing between the PR, but basically don't do it.
Yeah. Got it. No, I'm just curious. It's good to know.
Some orgs have checks in place to not let you push directly to main, and that's a good practice. And then some orgs don't. So don't do it. It's a good.
I'll take that.
Yeah, well, because like there are checks in place like this where you see, other places there could be automated tests that are going to run. So your branch is going to go through those tests, and you want that to happen, right? So now, after all this is done, then the button turns green. So when you press that merge pull button, you're going to feel more confident about it, and that's a good thing. So you want to go with these processes.
Okay.
Okay, so
open source is very, very much about this too. Like it has to pass all their tests before they would even merge your stuff.
Gotcha.
Kick ass, Jessica. You're green.
Looks great.
Your conflicts worked.
yeah, so that period of time where it was yellow, that
what was that?
Still reconciling some stuff.
I think it was building.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I think it was building the preview. That link that we saw. So it was just taking time to make sure that built.
Yeah, so GitHub and any GitLab, GitHub, any of the variants generally have these kind of hooks or checks, and you can actually see it if you click show all checks. They're deploy to Firebase, hosting. So we have two different things that anytime a change occurs to any branch or any pull request here, then it's exactly what Lauren was saying. But for instance, you can have a number of checks in here. If you have a test suite, you could have a step that's mandatory that requires that your test suite passes. Otherwise, it'll gray out your merge pull request. So it won't let you merge without your test passing. Or you could have a variety of things here. And then you can also have hooks. So when you merge it, it goes and automatically deploys the main branch. So GitHub has functionality, and you can actually see that, again, getting off the rails here, but if you were to scroll to the top of the repo, if you go to actions in the top next to pull requests, you can see these things. So you can see when these things occurred, on what branches, how long they took. And so you could also, if you were in the top left, you could click new workflow if you wanted to add something like, these kind of came with, we've pre-set these up to deploy to Firebase, but you could, potentially hook into anything. You could have it shoot a message to Slack. Like really, you could have it do anything. But it's kind of not something we're going to worry about right now.
So she's merged it. So everything's
Well, we're not merged yet.
Oh, no, not yet. Oh, my fault. Okay.
So I'm allowed to push this button now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then confirm.
Confirm.
All right. Success.
Yay.
Yahoo!
Right.
So then I'll just do a git pull from main.
Yeah.
Okay, donkey.
And should we be leaving the branches, or do we want to clean up already by deleting them?
I usually delete them if you're not going to use them again. So.
Yeah, you
I
have to close GRs as like a reference.
Say that again?
You have once you're done with the PR, you go and look in the closed one. You have all this down as reference to look at if you want to.
Okay, so go ahead and delete branch.
Yeah.
All right. I hoard things like code and all of that, and so this is good for me. So okay.
Now the branch will still exist on your local machine, and there's other ways to clean that up. So you've just deleted the branch in the in GitHub in the remote
All right.
repository. But if you were to go into VS Code and you did git branch, you would still see that branch existing there, and you can leave it there. I think James says he keeps his, but
I don't know.
I get confused. I just can't handle that many branches. So
how do you get rid of the branches from your local machine?
Yeah, so we could do this. So if we kind of stay in the terminal there, like I would do, let's see. So we're still in your branch. So I would git checkout main, and then git branch is essentially the same as that branch view that VS Code gave you that you were looking at. So just hit OK there. And so we see that we have 3 branches, and they're both, 2 of those are merged. So now we can delete them. So you can do git branch -d is the flag for deleting. Lowercase d, this is important. Lowercase d will cowardly fail if the branch is not merged into main. So like if you do, this will work because they're both merged, but if for instance you do lowercase d, that's a good habit because you won't accidentally delete a branch that hasn't been pushed up and merged. So if you do capital D, it'll just go and delete it no matter what, and that could make you very sad if you didn't have it pushed up or otherwise saved. So yeah, so lowercase d, sweet, space, and then just choose your branch just like you would do if you were checking out. And tab should complete for you too if you have tab completion.
It hasn't been for some reason on mine. I don't know why. But yeah,
we can fix that.
So yeah. Okay, so just do that. Enter.
Yeah.
All right. Warning. Deleting branch has been merged, but not yet merged to head.
Oh, you probably just have to do a git pull on your main.
Okay.
Good call. Sweet. And then you can go and delete. If you do git branch, you'll see that that's gone, but you'll still have the other one, and then you could go delete that one as well because it's probably not much use. Sweet.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. Then git branch would just show that you only have the main, and then you're ready to, check out a new branch.
Yeah, I'm just gonna run it again because I'm paranoid. So there we go. This is awesome. Cool.
Are you guys okay setting up your branches, or do you want to do it here?
I'm fine either way. If people have time, we can do them now. Otherwise, I'm comfortable setting up the new branch for Anna
Do them now. I mean, we're here already.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump off, but this is a really good session, and
yeah.
Good luck.
Have a good day, Emily. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day, everybody.
Figured since I was driving so much, if anyone else wanted to do the.
I want to, if it's okay, I want to ask a question about one thing. So this here, I'm gonna so Git status. So this Skylar will recognize this is the thing that I had refactored for their UL and their LIs. I had abstracted this into a just to be able to have something to comment on the pull request. So now I've got this sitting here. It's not, it's only on my machine locally, and it's untracked or whatever. What would you do with this? I don't want to lose the code because it might be a nice reference, but I don't want to have it like just living in this weird purgatory.
Oh, well, I mean, it's untracked. So if you were to get status when you changed a file that's tracked, you would see tracked and untracked. So technically you can go do your polls and do a bunch of stuff and it's not going to bother you, but the risk is that you might accidentally get added to a commit. I personally you said you like to stash things and keep things. I personally would say like all the code that exists here exists in other things. So I wouldn't be too fussed about it, having to recreate it. But if you really, really wanted to keep it, you could do a thing called Git Stash.
I think I might.
But I don't know if that works with untracked files. You might have to track it first. Oh, Lauren, is this?
I ran Git Stash when I had to because I was switching between. I had done this and I was switching between a branch and I was pulling down from GitHub, and it was like you need to Git Stash or delete this, or whatever. So I just ran Git Stash, but I've never run it before. How do I check what's stashed?
Is it Git Stash LS or Git Stash hyphen? I don't remember. I don't use it too often, but okay. Well, here we go. List, not LS, but list. So Git Stash, for anybody who doesn't know, is just a way of kind of taking a chunk of like file changes and not committing them, not getting rid of them, but just kind of putting them in this little side cubby hole stash thing. And so you can Git Stash puts them into that cubby hole, and Git Stash pop pops them out of that cubby hole. And then there's you can do all sorts of other stuff. But yeah, so you have a stash at 0. And so I think that we don't really want to dig into Git Stash too much. I'd say like go look up on Google and dig into it if you want. But the main commands here, list is going to show if you Git stashed like 10 times, you would have 0 through 9. You would Git stash at brackets 0 through 9. So that's like an address reference. And then you could Git stash pop. And if you do with nothing else, it will just pop the latest. It's last in, first out. So just pop the last one. Or you could pop a specific one, Git Stash pop, and use a reference like year 0 or 1 or 2. They can get confusing real quickly. So generally, I personally only use them when I'm doing like working on one branch. I just need to like throw something away for a few seconds and then bring it back. I wouldn't like stash something and bring it back on a different branch. It just gets really, really messy really quickly.
So,
I don't know how you feel about it, Lauren, but
I'm not too tied to my code. I mean, I just so what you would just delete this and then what?
I'll just delete it.
And that's it. And there won't be any
I mean, you could.
Go ahead. I was
gonna say, if there's ever something like that I'm experimenting with, I'll just throw it in its own local branch that like I can pop back to if I want to see it later.
Sure. I mean, that code wasn't too hard, and I have a pretty good feel of how to reproduce that, so it wasn't too hard.
Plus, I think luckily it's in your comment, so I guess we could always.
There you go. I got a screen grab. So. Okay, and then the last thing I was going to ask is I missed this. I'm in this branch. I want to delete it. Where is that? Where's the delete this branch?
There should be an area where you can see all the. Go to view all branches. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Wait a minute.
Trash can.
Just both of these?
Well, they're the same one, so you can just delete it. Yeah. One just shows your active ones, your ones. In that case, they're the same. So.
Nice. Look at that. Boom. Thanks, guys.
And then I would just make sure that you're on main and have the latest pulled down before you go and create another branch. So you're not creating a branch off of something stale, but.
Okay, looks good.
Yeah.
And so then we're just gonna do, and I don't know what, go look at the issues real fast.
Yeah, so what's our format is initials hyphen.
Is hers ZA, is that right? Jessica, was that ZA?
Yep, it's ZA. Yeah, you got it.
All right. And this one is maybe add new item or add item. I'm trying to think of like I want to be like
add to shopping list, or yeah, however you can put it, however you want it.
Okay. A lot of words. Okay.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, right? Like, what's the reference? You're gonna have multiple references. There's the branch name, but then you're also gonna have a pull request that has a more descriptive title, and then your commits are gonna have even more descriptive kind of bits of what what the PR contains, and then hopefully your there's comments in your PR description that. Right. So there's multiple levels. So you don't need to have like a branch name that says everything, because your commits are probably going to take care of that.
There you go. Okay. Well, I think I'm about to run pretty soon. I gotta go make lunch for the family and do some stuff.
Cool.
Thanks. I mean, I learned a lot. This is awesome.
Yeah.
This is probably more,
So I don't know what y'all talked about last week as far as the cadence, but just try to be proactive in setting up your pairing sessions to start working on the story. And I mean, of course, this isn't your day job, so fit it where it works well with your schedules, but at the same time, try to do it as early as possible. So if things come up, you can ping in Slack, we can have conversations about it, get some comments on the PRs towards like mid to end week, and yeah, it should be fun.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
All right.
And I pinned some threads for you guys to get to
Nice.
chatting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. I see it. Yep.
All right. See y'all. Bye.
All right, guys. Have a good one.